How do you know a MAGA Republican is lying to you? By saying they're a MAGA Republican. MAGA Republican Senate hopeful Eric Hovde, who is running as the Republican in Wisconsin against the Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin, was caught in a major lie this past weekend. Eric Hovde said that he was going to show up in Oconto County, Wisconsin to give a speech. He said, look, I'm going to be here with all of the people. But then he skipped town and he was then photographed where? In California, where he has run he used to run a bank. He's a multi-millionaire Californian mega millionaire. And so he was spending his weekend just chilling on the beach and living the lavish lifestyle while lying to the people of Wisconsin. Politico got the scoop. Did Eric Hovde opt for a California beach day over a rural Wisconsin campaign stop? The GOP Senate candidate was on the bill for a meet and greet at Oconto County's Copperfest Parade on Saturday, but Wisconsin Democrats, who have been trying to paint him as a carpetbagger, because he is, got a photo from a tipster who said Hovde was in Laguna Beach, where he owns a mansion. You can't see the man's face, but he appears to be with Carslin Lepetito, the president of Hovde's bank, and he seems to have the same hat, bathing suit, and beach chair as in the previous video of Hovde that a tracker recorded. Hovde's campaign and the Oconto County GOP didn't respond for questions. And by the way, this guy has been caught in hypocrisy after hypocrisy, lie after lie. Here's a good one. So Hovde, who's been railing against, he's like, these schools are not letting kids do the Pledge of Allegiance, just making things up. They're not letting them do the Pledge of Allegiance. So last month or 2 months ago, he tried to do the pledge. Hovde didn't know the words to the Pledge of Allegiance. Here, watch this.
Thank you. We're all so blessed to be part of the greatest country in the history of mankind, America. America has given more prosperity, freedom to its people than any country in the history of the world. It not only saved the world once, but twice in the last century from oppression and tyranny. I'm proud to be an American. I love my country. So let's say the Pledge of Allegiance together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Amen. God bless America. Go Slinger Speedway.
Thanks, Eric.
And then just so you see here, here's Hovde having a temper tantrum saying that people who don't say the pledge are unpatriotic when he does not know the words to the Pledge of Allegiance. Play the clip.
We said the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. My wife knows a teacher in Madison who taught elementary school. She would have the kids do the Pledge of Allegiance. You know what she was told by school administrators?
No more.
You can't. And if you do it, you will be punished. All you're doing is indoctrinating young Nazis. Think of that thought process. This is the country that fought a world war, sacrificed our young to save Europe, to beat the Nazis. They have no concept of what they are talking about. So they have eroded the patriotism in our country. That's the first thing they've done.
And, this is someone who can't answer any questions just directly. I guess MAGA Republican, as I said at the outset. Here is Eric Hovde flip-flopping and not giving a straight answer on if he would have certified the 2020 election results. Play the clip.
Would you have voted to certify the results in 2020 if you were in Congress?
I'm not here talking about 2020.
Yes, I probably would have. But I'm here to run in 24. I know, you all want to talk about the past.
President Trump keeps talking about it.
I'm running for the U.S. Senate in 2024. And I'll tell you, what people are talking about? They're not talking about the 2020 election.
On the other hand, I've had the opportunity to interview Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin from Wisconsin, who's actually gotten things done as a senator. She's been on the show before. Let me show you the most recent interview I did with Senator Baldwin just a day ago. Here, watch this. Seeing this constant attack of law and order, this constant attack on our freedoms as Americans each and every day is just beyond frustrating. And to see these MAGA Republican senators show up at Donald Trump's criminal trial as Donald Trump quite literally dressed them up, and they didn't even attend the trial, then attacked our jury system and our justice system. These are United States senators. And then to see some of the hearings taking place this week, especially in the Senate, where some of the MAGA Republicans brought in witnesses who are basically saying under no circumstances should there ever be reproductive rights for women and taking away all abortion care. I had to have Senator Tammy Baldwin from Wisconsin join us to kind of break all of this down, because what I love about your work, since you've been in the Senate since 2012, but you've been in the state legislature, you've been in Congress, is that you are a doer. When you take a look at the things that you do, you're the kind of senator who rolls up her sleeves and just gets things done. So first and foremost, Senator, welcome to the show.
It's a delight to join you. Thanks for having me.
I just want to get your first reaction to this when you had these MAGA Republican senators, your colleagues, parade themselves at this criminal trial. Let me just show you one example right here of Senator Tommy Tuberville, MAGA Republican. Play this clip.
He's been here a month. I am disappointed in looking at the Americans, supposedly American citizens in that courtroom, that the DA comes in and he acts like it is his Super Bowl. And I guess it is, to be noticed. But that's what's happening in this country. The Republican candidate for President of the United States is going through mental anguish in a courtroom that's very depressing, very depressing.
Weren't these the pull yourselves up by the bootstraps, mental anguish, depressing? Look, Donald Trump's a convicted felon right now. That doesn't change their thinking. What do you make of all of this?
Well, first, when the judge instructed Donald Trump not to speak ill of the jurors or the judge himself, et cetera, and his family, he just recruited others to say what he couldn't anymore. And then secondly, for some of those folks, it really looked like they were auditioning for the role of being selected as Trump's running mate. And I was struck with that parade of MAGA Republicans coming up and standing outside the courtroom and also sitting in the courtroom. His family didn't show up, but or most of his family didn't show up. But yeah, the folks who are auditioning for running mate status did.
I was just shouting at the screen. This is supposed to be a co-equal branch of government that fights for its independence. And then you have these MAGA Republicans, to your point, being pawns to violate gag orders by attacking a judge's daughter. I mean, it has nothing to do with just attack the judge. I could go on and on and on, but let's talk about real business right here, which is today the Senate is going to vote on whether women deserve the right to contraception.
Yes.
And as you said, the stakes to protect women's reproductive rights have never been higher. Can you talk about the importance of today's vote, the fact that there even needs to be a vote on this?
Well, let's start there. So if it weren't devastating enough that 2 years ago this month, the Supreme Court with 3 justices who came onto the court under former President Donald Trump, if it weren't enough that they reversed nearly 50 years of precedent in overturning Roe versus Wade, when you read the opinion, there's so much more implied in it. So basically, the court said there's no longer a constitutional right to privacy. And they proclaimed that Roe was wrongly decided back in 1973. Well, I'm a lawyer. I was thinking back to my law school days going, well, there's a lot of other cases that were decided based on a constitutional right to privacy, including access to contraception, the Griswold versus Connecticut case for those lawyers who are listening in. That was based on a fundamental right to privacy, as were the marriage cases like interracial marriage and same-sex marriage, and a number of other cases. So not only did half of America have fewer rights than their parents and grandparents after Roe was reversed, but other cases were implied. And that's why we have to stand up and take action with regard to protection of access to contraception. When Roe was overturned, a state like Wisconsin, we went back to state laws on the matter. And in Wisconsin, we had a state law that was passed in 1849 that is viewed widely as a criminal abortion ban. We cannot let what happened with the Dobbs decision happen in many other incredibly important arenas. And, the right to control one's body, the right to decide if and whether and when to have a family, all of this was put, was jeopardized when the Dobbs decision came out. But who knows? Will they take it the next step and try to challenge access to contraception? And if you look at what Justice Clarence Thomas wrote in his concurring opinion in the Dobbs case, he said, "Let's go after these. Let's keep it coming."
When there's this kind of gaslighting going on with the Republicans where they go, no, we're not coming for your contraception next. But then all of their policies, procedures, the people they associate with, the people they promote to those positions that make the decisions are all of these people who do say they want to take away people's contraception rights. So you can't even judge them by what they say. You have to judge them by what they do and the types of people they associate with. So I was watching this, the hearing yesterday that you were a part of, and I was saying, okay, who are the witnesses that people like Senator Tammy Baldwin are calling, and who are the witnesses that the MAGA Republicans are calling? So let's take a look at that. So the witnesses called by the Senate Republicans were basically took the position that abortion is never necessary to save a woman's life, and that basic forms of contraception like IUDs are abortions. I'll show you just a small portion from the Republicans' witness, and I'll get your reaction. Play this clip.
So if you look at the package inserts for such as the copper IUD, it actually clearly states that they do prevent implantation even if fertilization has occurred, which would classify that as an abortifacient, yes.
And so your colleagues and you were asking this Republican witness very basic yes or no questions like, would you want this banned? Would you want this banned? And you never got a direct answer, and she would always kind of pivot. So what'd you make of that witness, and what does that tell you?
Well, with regard to that exchange between Senator Murray and Dr. Francis, she had been asked a series of questions, and she was evasive on all of them. But it was very clear that the agenda is far beyond just the overturning of Roe v. Wade. She's an example of somebody who would welcome Justice Clarence Thomas's beckoning to relitigate Griswold and decide whether or not there should be access to contraception, or maybe the government should pick and choose which contraceptives should be available to people in the United States. Again, she was very evasive, not willing to say yes or no, but in the it was very clear in the end that she would support relitigation of whether or not there should be contraception or contraceptive access.
Then on the other hand, you had witnesses that the Democrats called, that you called, like Dr. Allison Litton, an OBGYN, the chief medical officer at Planned Parenthood in Wisconsin, who discussed the devastating toll that overturning Roe v. Wade caused in your state. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Linton is, she brings great experience, but I think was so helpful not only in speaking to the medical expertise, but also sharing and uplifting the stories of the real dire consequences of the overturning of Roe versus Wade in a state like Wisconsin, which reverted to this archaic state law that was passed in 1849, 1 year after Wisconsin achieved statehood. But she could tell the firsthand accounts of what happened to women in Wisconsin when the Dobbs decision was handed down. They stopped services in Wisconsin at, I believe she said it was 9:10 a.m. Central Time on the day that Dobbs came out. And there were patients who were in the waiting room who had to been told, because of what the Supreme Court has done, we cannot provide services to you. And then there were the many stories of folks who needed abortion care because of unviable pregnancies or partial miscarriages, who were left to their own devices, to plan a trip out of state if they had the wherewithal and finances to do that. And in some cases, to simply bleed out or become ill facing sepsis before they could get services within Wisconsin. And Dr. Linton was so articulate in sharing the real consequences of being in a state without access to full and comprehensive reproductive care.
You know, all I hear from MAGA Republicans all the time is, this is unfair, this is rigged, Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that. Politicization, weapon. It's just a constant stream of whining and complaining, and it's just so odd to see. As I said when we started this interview, what I love about the work that you've done is you're a doer. You lead legislation, you shepherd it through all of the processes. You know, it's not always the work that gets the big press conferences right away, because you're doing the hard work behind the scenes. And so, look, this is an important year, 2024. It's an election year. You're up for re-election. But the American people are just looking to, like, what's being done right now. And I think Americans are paying attention, particularly right now. They're starting to focus more than ever. So can you just list some of the pieces of legislation? Because I don't want the American public, and we have a smart audience here at the MeidasTouch Network, though, to think politics is this kind of Trump weirdness. I want to normalize what politics actually should be about, which is like doing things for the people. So you have a whole list of things that you're doing right now for the people. Can you discuss some of those?
Yeah, well, I want to, sort of staying on topic with the consequences of the Dobbs decision at the nearly 2-year mark. Obviously, today we are advancing legislation to try to protect access to contraception against the threat posed, implicated by the Dobbs decision. But I actually want to talk about another success we had by keeping our nose to the grindstone, again, related to the Dobbs decision. So earlier I was talking about all the cases that were decided based on a right to privacy that could be in jeopardy because the Supreme Court majority said there is no constitutional right to privacy. They basically went as far as saying, we read the U.S. Constitution literally, and since the word privacy is not anywhere in the U.S. Constitution, there could be no constitutional right to privacy. That jeopardized interracial marriage and same-sex marriage, and people were terrified. And so one of the really amazing achievements in these very divided times was passing the Respect for Marriage Act to protect marriages against a potential future Supreme Court revisiting those cases and throwing them out, just like they did Roe versus Wade. And nobody thought in the Senate, where you have to overcome a filibuster and need 60 votes to pass something, that we'd be able to pass the Respect for Marriage Act protecting interracial and same-sex marriages. We did. It was, and it was conversation after conversation, one senator at a time, trying to find folks who wanted to get to yes and needed clarification and needed it. We did it. We stuck our nose to the grindstone, and the Respect for Marriage Act was signed into law. So one example of, our responding to the reality presented by the Dobbs decision. I am the chief author of the Women's Health Protection Act, which would restore Roe by codifying it at the federal level, and take the additional and necessary step of telling the states you can't at the state level pass laws that burden or make it difficult to exercise full comprehensive reproductive rights. And we do not yet have enough votes to overcome a filibuster, but we need to be planful and strategic of how we advance these protections. And we can't make it a 50-year process to restore these rights. We've got to figure out a way to do it much more quickly than that. I have a plan, I might add. But there's so many other things that we are working on at this juncture. You've seen in this administration some amazing accomplishments with regard to the infrastructure law, the CHIPS and Science Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. We are still implementing those acts because they are so bold and visionary that they don't just, that it's not just a year, it's a decade of investment. And we're very vigilant about protecting those laws from the threat of repeal by Republicans. But as we move forward, we're also working on passing a farm bill, which is really important to the people of my state, America's Dairyland. And we're working very hard on a Water Resources Act, and so the list is plentiful, and a lot of focus right now on strengthening our healthcare system because it is still inequitable and it is still unaffordable to too many.
Well, you got into politics at the age of 24, was it, or 25?
Yes.
24.
I was elected to the county board at the age of 24.
The Dane County Board of Supervisors, then right. The Wisconsin Assembly in 1992. You've been working for the people every step of the way. And I just think these conversations that we have that people don't really get to see on the media, where it's sound bites and this person yelling at this person, I think these conversations are the ones that are most important. So I always appreciate you talking about substance with us here on the MeidasTouch Network. Senator Tammy Baldwin, thanks for joining us. I appreciate you being here as always.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone, make sure you hit subscribe. We're on our way to 3 million subscribers thanks to your support. Have a wonderful day.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.